Throughout history, there are countless examples of practices that were standard until they weren't any longer. We waited for people to deliver milk to our homes until we didn't. People dressed up in suits and dresses in everyday life until they didn't. We went to restaurants with smoking and non-smoking sections until we didn't. And lawyers traditionally wrote their own thought leadership as part of their marketing and business development efforts until they didn't. Or at least that's what I believe. Just because lawyers have traditionally written thought leadership as part of their marketing and business development efforts doesn't mean they should. Doing so is a relic from yesteryear, when the only marketing that lawyers knew how to do or were able to do was networking, speaking, and writing. They didn't have support staff or outside vendors to help them with any of these things. They took on the burden of writing and speaking and networking themselves. But today it's a whole new ballgame. There are resources for attorneys to bring aboard to help them with their thought leadership, such as internal or external ghostwriters. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why most attorneys should not be writing their own thought leadership today. First, it's cliche, but it's true. Legal writing is not the same as writing for marketing and business development purposes. It's fundamentally a different kind of writing. Just because an attorney writes a lot for their practice, whether it's court papers, deal documents, or some other work product, doesn't mean they know how to write marketing and business development documents, including thought leadership. In legal documents, attorneys tend to write in a style that's passive, it's detached, it's overly formal. They want to make definitive statements. They do not want to take a risk of being wrong when they say something, and they don't know how to not be exhaustive, whether it's making every argument in a court paper or listing every contingency in a deal document. Some attorneys can switch between writing in a legal style versus writing in a marketing and business development style, but most don't. Second, they approach thought leadership from a legal perspective, not a marketing perspective. Yes, they know that thought leadership is being written for marketing and business development purposes, but again, they normally don't write for marketing and business development purposes. This means that they may not understand how to orient the content around the client, make it client-centered, focused on answering questions that clients have, answering concerns they might have, and focusing on giving insights in a way that are clear and relevant to the client or whoever the reader is. They don't know how to write headlines that captures those readers' attention. They don't know how to write shorter, punchier sentences and paragraphs that are now a hallmark of a particular type of writing style that we most see in marketing and business development materials. Third, most attorneys don't understand best practices for thought leadership. They're not students of the thought leadership game. They don't see that thought leadership is its own world within the larger marketing and business development world. They're not going to understand the process between coming up with ideas and tinkering with them to produce thought leadership. They're not going to understand how to cover topics in a way that makes compelling content. They're not going to wrestle with topics to figure out how best to explain them to their target audiences. They're not going to understand how to break apart larger topics and cover them in many angles over the course of many articles, which gives them more content to publish and produce, but also gives readers smaller chunks so they can understand better particular topics. They're often too close to their own knowledge and wisdom and insights to realize how interesting and novel, or not, that knowledge and wisdom and those insights might be. They don't have the necessary distance to be able to look at what they're talking about and determine just how relevant and compelling it is to their target audiences, and whether there should be some more clarification, whether there should be some tinkering with the angle, the perspective, to make the content as relevant and valuable and compelling for their target audiences. And they're almost certainly not reading other people's content for the purposes of improving theirs. They're probably consumers of thought leadership. They're reading other attorneys and law firms' thought leadership, but they're probably not reading it with an eye toward what works, what doesn't work, how can I use this to make my own thought leadership better. And perhaps most importantly, they don't appreciate that the content they're writing is competing for the attention of their target audiences alongside every other piece of content that's out there today. They're not just competing with other attorneys or other law firms. They're competing with every piece of content that's on every internet browser tab that their target audiences have open at any given time. Finally, most attorneys are unlikely to get better at thought leadership over the course of their career because they don't get a lot of practice at it. They're unlikely to fix the issues that I've been talking about. Thought leadership is something they spend a little bit of time on. It's in addition to their work. It's not their main course. They're not going to get a lot of practice. An attorney who writes between 1 to 6 articles a year, maybe even 6 to 12 articles a year, that's still not getting a lot of practice. That's once a month. Once a year to once a month, they're doing something, they're working on it, but that's not enough repetition. That's not enough experience to actually get better at thought leadership over the course of their careers. The attorneys who write a lot of thought leadership can certainly handle that load and tend to get better at it because they get more practice. But most attorneys are not going to get better at thought leadership, so they're going to keep producing mediocre at best thought leadership. Receiving deliveries of milk at your home, wearing a suit to the grocery store, and even sitting in a smoking section of a restaurant. Those are relics of days past, and I nominate attorneys writing their own thought leadership as a future relic of the past, putting aside the entire issue of their lack of non-billable time to devote to thought leadership. The actual quality of their thought leadership does not measure up to the quality of someone who writes thought leadership for a living, whether that's a colleague at their firm or an outside ghostwriter. Those people eat, sleep, and breathe thought leadership. They bring a level of expertise, they bring a level of strategy, and they bring a level of actual execution of the thought leadership writing that is often far and away above what most attorneys can bring to the table. If you're looking for more hot takes on thought leadership, but mostly best practices for thought leadership, check out lawfirmedgehealthservice.com. We have more than 500 videos, blog posts, and podcast episodes for you to check out.